Today on Later Podcast, episode 25, we are joined by Dr. John Porterfield. He's a robotic surgeon and now co-founder and CMO of Informed Surgical. We talk about his journey from the OR to entrepreneurship and how data is redefining surgical care for patients. Let's get into the episode. Well, welcome to Leader Podcast, episode 25. We have the infamous Dr. John Porterfield joining us today. So welcome, Dr. Porterfield.
Thank you, Steph.
You're welcome. So I always start out these conversations with how we know each other. I don't know every person that comes on the podcast, but I do have a pretty wide network. And coincidentally or not, we do know each other. I was just reminding him in our pre-call how we know each other, but obviously, I worked at Intuitive Surgical for half my career, and Dr. Porterfield was an up-and-coming surgeon at the time at UAB. And obviously, I'm going to have you share your whole experience. But my memory of you is I had you come out because I had a very difficult account in California that we were struggling with. It was a teaching hospital, and you had done such a phenomenal job at outlining your robotics program at UAB, and we wanted to copycat it on the West. And so at that point you were traveling, you were kind of a road show that, you'd gone to multiple places. And I remember picking you up at the airport and taking you to this VA in the Long Beach area, and we were starving. So we went to a sushi place, which was literally like food poisoning USA. I mean, thankfully we were good, but I took you there, and then I took you to a couple other hospitals. But one thing we didn't talk about that you probably won't remember and definitely made an impact on me is when we were eating lunch, you were telling me about your obsession with running. And I too was running at that time a lot. And I think you had told me, and I'm going to misquote this because it was at least 5, possibly 8, 9 years ago, but you had told me that you ran 20 miles a week at that time. I'm sure it's crazy more now, but at that time, I think 5 days a week, or maybe it was 4 days a week, 5 miles a day. I don't know. It was something around about 20 miles a week. And so I actually tried it the week after you left. You don't know this, but I'm like, I'm going to do that. Duh.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, no, I can't do that. No, I can't. I mean, I'm sure I could if I was a marathon runner and, that was my day job, but I did make a big attempt at matching spades with the infamous Dr. Porterfield. Anyway, so that's how I recall us knowing each other. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember that trip well. And I'm still doing that with Intuitive. They still use me as to come in and tell the story that we did at UAB. And it's I think it's a little bit offending to some of the big name academic institutions whenever, I have slides and I use subtle phrases like, 12 years ago when we started this, that type of thing. That's insulting to some of the big name places. And that's been good. I think that, we've created some pressure in the market because we were early. I've been early with most everything I've done. And that's fun. And I think that, I was asked the other day by a kid in college, and he asked, what's the definition of success for you? And I was thinking about that, like when I'm really, really old, like I'd still like to be early in things. I wouldn't want to be a late adopter. But yeah, I remember the trip, and, there've been so many good memories from that. And I'm thankful that I have a cast iron stomach, but the training, the training got a little bit out of control. I mean, I got up to where I was doing 40, 50 miles a week.
That's nuts.
That's what I needed to get ready for Ironmans. I had a goal to, I actually had one of our hospital executives told me that I couldn't continue my role as program director. I couldn't continue all the things I was doing if I wanted to train for an Ironman. And I was like, watch. And so I did. I did 3 Ironmans before I turned 50.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
You hadn't done an Ironman, I think, when we had met. I don't think you had done that yet. Maybe you had, but wow. 3 Ironmans?
I did 3 in 2 years. And so if you ever really need me to do something, you just tell me I can't do it.
Right.
And, and then we're going to find a way to create that time. It's been really good for my family. My wife still runs over 2,000 miles a year. I've got our middle child, our daughter's captain of the track and cross country team at Auburn University. So she's one of the fastest runners in the country. Our son has the Indianapolis Marathon coming up. And then our youngest daughter she was a state champion in track and cross country herself.
Oh my gosh. So a huge family of underachievers is what you're telling me.
Well, when you have a surgeon that marries a concert pianist, you're gonna get performance driven kids, which we can talk about because that brings challenges, and the kids will certainly tell you that it's not been the easiest with us as parents.
I think parenting just in general is tough. I mean, I'm a mom of 3 boys, and I was raised with all girls. I was one of 4 girls. So I was so fish out of water on this raising boys notion. Very different experience than growing up with all girls. Boys couldn't be more different. And I mean, some would say they're easier, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm not surprised at what you just described. That's my memory of you, is you were a machine. And where you and I are very much aligned is I'm always an early adopter. I had that first phone before iPhones came out that actually I think came out on Mission Impossible. It was like a Nokia, but it was a compact, like it folded together.
Oh, yeah.
I think they, didn't make too much of it after that, but I'm always about getting something first and trying it and taking it apart and making it work. And then on the note of telling you can't do something, I'm exactly the same way. And I heard a great quote the other day that you can use going forward. Never say I can't, just say I haven't tried it yet.
Right.
Or I haven't done it yet, but never can't.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the can't never
we'll figure
could.
it out.
Yeah, the can't never could, all the coaching stuff, and just really pushing the kids. I feel the same thing even like with surgical residency and surgical education, and how we coached other institutions to pick up robotic curriculums was the same concepts that worked on the soccer field that worked in the boardroom. Was like, let's fail early and often, but never big.
Yeah.
Right. Let's keep leaning forward and taking calculated risk, and that's really been something that was put into me early in life, and it's more important than probably anything else.
I agree. I think if you're going to fail big, I mean, I'm okay with failing big because I think both of us are in a situation where we know we'll land on our feet, even if we do. But I think if you're going to fail big, you make sure you have a big lesson, right? There needs to be a very big lesson attached to that big failure moving forward. Okay, so because it is a leadership podcast, and leadership is something that I love, I'm obsessed with, and I've had a long career in it. Tell me about your leadership journey and also your journey from your previous life as a surgeon to now an entrepreneur and company owner. I know you're still a surgeon, but give me the whole story for those that don't know you.
Yeah. So I guess it really starts on a farm. It's actually where I am right now. I'm sitting in my great aunt's home, which is kind of cool. Super old home, but it's got really high speed fiber internet. But I'm down here doing some telemedicine clinic today, and just ate lunch with my parents. So it's really these are my roots. This is the dirt I grew up on, and went to Auburn for undergrad, went to UAB for a master's in epidemiology and public health. And that's largely because I didn't get into medical school on my first attempt. And so that was kind of like buying time. It was like punching the tickets for me to get into medical school. Little did I know, I use so much of that degree now from the population health standpoint of what we do with Informed. So I would say just right off the bat, from a leadership standpoint, pour everything you have into every opportunity. And I'm thankful that I got a 4.0, and I'm thankful that I still have relationships with some of those professors, because now 30 years later, like, I'm still leaning on some of those relationships and that expertise. Whereas for me at the time, I was 23 years old. I was bitter I didn't get in med school, and I didn't want to go get a master's in epidemiology, right? I wanted to be a surgeon.
Yeah.
So I think that's been something, as I've reflected back on what I've learned at different points. And then the other thing that comes along is like the changes, like UAB, world famous cardiac surgical training program. John Kirkland and then his son Jim Kirkland really grew this amazing cardiac surgical practice. Robert Cerfolio, who I'm sure you met in your times at Intuitive.
I know him well. Yes.
Yes. Surf became a big mentor of mine. He still is a mentor of mine. And he was the first clinical advisor that I brought on board at Informed. So Surf was influential. So he sent me to the Mayo Clinic to do my surgical training. And I was going to come back a heart surgeon. And along the way, I fell in love with surgical education. I saw some endocrine surgeons, Clive Grant, who was my primary mentor at Mayo. And he was at all of his kids' violin recitals, and he was at his kids' baseball games. And he and Karen had a life that was different than the life of the cardiac surgeons that I knew. And at that time, we just had our third child, Natalie, and so that was like a big shift. It's kind of like a Tom Cruise movie, right? Where Tom Cruise like loses his confidence, and then a woman comes in and like reinstills his confidence, and he goes and saves the world.
Yeah, behind every amazing man is an incredible woman.
Absolutely.
I hold that very dear to my heart. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
I'm
so
sure
that was always
your wife is incredible.
Yeah. So that's Cassie, right? So Cassie is like, I'd love for the world to know her, but she's never really wanted the world to know her. She's been in the background and tirelessly supporting everything, not just for the kids and the family, but for me professionally also. And so anyway, so that led to endocrine surgery fellowship. That led to UAB. Kirby Bland hired me there. I promoted through the ranks to full professor with tenure, as faster than anyone else had at the Department of Surgery. Program director, national roles, traveling internationally with Intuitive. So Intuitive gave me a springboard. They gave me a podium that I would have had through only academic endeavors. I learned a lot about declarations of external activity, conflicts of interest, conflicts of commitment. I've had 2 lawyers that I've worked with that have really helped me with that over the years. And I'm thankful that UAB was receptive to that in 2008. I think in 2025, academic institutions are less receptive.
Yeah.
But I was
working with industry.
Yeah, I hit a sweet spot. I hit a sweet spot in time there. UAB remains a very forward-leaning, innovative institution.
Yeah.
But it's different now. And so
as with everything, everything's different now.
Yeah.
I reflect on the old days often. But
that's what created a little bit of the fire in me to do something different. I know I'm like giving a monologue now, but it was the moment where I was looking at like, what's next? Like, go become a chair at a big name place, chair surgery. And then Sal Brogna called, had been the chief operating officer at Intuitive for 24 years, led the development of the robots that I use. And we had a common, love for Porsches, and he was coming to Birmingham to the Porsche driving school. So we'd gotten to know each other there. And he called out of the blue one day and said, John, I'd like to start a company with you. And I said, absolutely, Sal, I'm all in. And he said, John, I didn't tell you what we were going to do. And I said, it doesn't matter.
You don't care.
Doesn't matter. Right? When Sal calls, you just say yes.
Yeah, when Sal calls, you say yes. I agree. Yes.
And it was the perfect timing because I was a little bit disenchanted with the chair surgery roles that some recruiting firms had asked me to look at. And I wanted to be able to get patients to the right surgeon at the right time in the right facility. And I felt like the role of the chairs was really to make sure all of the surgeons in the department had enough cases. And that just didn't sit great with me because I wanted to be able to give the country what I would give for my family.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I want to hear about your company, but just to go back to what you had said, I worked at Intuitive, as we talked about, a long time. And so anyone that I know, friends, family, neighbors, people I don't know, but just a degree of separation, they always come to me now because they've learned the hard way that not all surgeons are created equal. And, it's important to understand people's reputation, their outcomes, their expertise, because, maybe someone's skilled in one area and not in another. And I just think it's so important to be informed. So, on that, let's talk about informed surgical. I do want to understand, and again, our audience doesn't know. So let's start from, what's the problem that you're solving? What's that unmet need in the industry or out in the ether that you're looking at? And also what makes informed surgical unique. I think with two power minds like you and Sal, I can only imagine this is a big deal. So I want to hear about it. Tell me all about it.
Yeah. So really the need is patients need and they deserve to be informed about who's operating on them.
Mm-hmm.
And current state, without informed, patients don't stand a chance. And like take even you and I, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're heavily connected into the healthcare industry.
Mm-hmm.
But if you called and said that a family member needed an inguinal hernia, who should do it, in your area in California?
Yep.
Then, prior to informed, I could have picked up the phone, I could have called, an intuitive counterpart, I could have called,
Mm-hmm.
I could have called a mesh rep or somebody like that, and I could have asked. That's going to be based off of reputation. It's going to be based off of volume numbers because they might know they put in 235 pieces of that type of mesh that year,
Right.
or they did so many robotic cases. But you don't know the outcomes. And so that's really Sal and I were getting those calls every week,
Mm-hmm.
And so what we did at Informed that's unique was we built a procedure specific quality algorithm. And the key to that was we had to risk adjust it to be able to compare surgeons. Because if you're ever going to build any type of algorithm like this, surgeons are going to immediately reject it because they're going to say their patients are sicker or I train surgical residents. And so my outcomes, I'm special, right? I'm special and my patients are sicker. And so what we set out to do and what we've built over the last 4 years, we commercialized this with our first customers in March of 2024. And so now for large self-insured employers, we match their employees and their members under their benefits plan. We match them with the right surgeon at the right location so that they can have a procedure that goes through in an uncomplicated way by an expert. And when we do that, we save that employer around $10,000 per surgery. So
due to avoidance of complications, or
that's about half of it. So about 50% of it is avoidance of complications the day of surgery and within the first 90 days. And the other half is getting them to the right site of care. Because like in Birmingham, Alabama, you can have your gallbladder taken out at a HOPD, a hospital attached outpatient department, for $15,000 or $6,000. And the $14,000 doesn't get you a better surgeon, right? Because that's me at the university, right? Bart Wood, Grandview Medical Center, 4 miles down the road, takes out more gallbladders than I do and has spectacular outcomes.
Yeah.
Philip Fisher, Timothy Christopher, there's others in the Birmingham area that have really high volume practices, great outcomes, a little bit of difference in complexity, so that, if the patient had a heart transplant, we would want them at the main university hospital. If they had a heart transplant, now they need their gallbladder out.
Yep.
But if they haven't had a heart transplant, you'd rather have them at the other facility that's more geared up for that. So that's been disruptive in the industry. It's created some conflict.
I can
we're
imagine.
Transparent.
Yeah.
We're transparent about it. But that's what we do for those large self-insured employers.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay. And you'd said you became commercial in 2024?
Correct.
Okay. So how has the last year been?
The last year has been a whirlwind of venture capital meetings, starting with LSI back in March. We have 3 lead investors right now for our Series A round, which we haven't disclosed that size. But yeah, we're finalizing a Series A round. We have financed the majority of the company. We've raised $5 million to date, and we've done that primarily through small home offices and kind of a friends and family network there. And our investors are just spectacular.
Yeah.
About half have been inside the health medtech world. The other half are not.
Yeah.
And they've asked some really practical questions on like how we're designing the product side and going to market. And they've also asked, some really, practical questions from the financial and revenue side. It's been really, I think we've got a really good base investor team.
Nice. Is it an app? Is that how you're promoting it, or is it cloud-based? Both?
Right. Yeah. So we first went to market with a nurse navigation platform. So so human in the middle, right? So we've got our nurse navigator. So if an employee at one of the companies where they have Informed as a benefit, if they hear that they need surgery, they talk with our nurse navigator. Our nurse navigator walks them through the whole process from start to finish with identifying the surgeon, getting scheduled with the surgeon, following up through surgery, and then ongoing after that. We have just released 3 weeks ago a website called procendi.com. It's a procendi.com. And it means to bring forward in Latin. And you could think of it as like bringing forward information, but we also like to think about it as like bringing forward what we think would be here for sure in 2035, but let's go ahead and have that now. And on that web-based platform, you can look anywhere in the United States for soft tissue surgeons, and it will show you the best in any area. And you can change your search radius from 25 miles up to 200 miles. And it shows the Informed Surgeon ID. It doesn't show the surgeon's name, but it just shows that ID. And we've not released an option for patients to purchase that yet, as we're basically running it, free to the world right now, as we're just continuing to turn it for free. But we will monetize that direct to consumer model. But right now it's really neat to see it turn for free, because that's really, I mean, if I could give it away forever, I would. And it's exciting to see.
Cool.
Patients
so what's
getting
the
right
criteria?
surgeon.
What's the criteria that you're using to, let people know? Is it the MOD database? Is it nothing to do with that?
Yeah, so we have 13 different data sources that we use to understand, surgeons' practices and their outcomes. The base of that, starts with like the NPI data file, so that we're working from a complete list of all the surgeons in the United States. That builds on top of CMS data, which has some volumes, but largely is very limited in what it could do from outcomes. But sitting on top of that, we have one of the largest all paid claims data sets in the US. And what's important about that, and what made it really expensive to buy, was that it is identifiable at the surgeon level. So it says, the code for a cholecystectomy, and then it'll have Porterfield's NPI number right next to it.
Wow.
And then the NPI number of the person that maybe diagnosed tachycardia in the recovery room, that ordered an EKG, and found out the whole team. And so it's identifiable at the practitioner level. And why that's so important is because you need to look through there. You need to look at hundreds of patients that I've taken care of to know what's the average BMI of my patients, how much heart disease is in my population. And so that's what's allowed us to create this informed quality score for the surgeons, importantly, at the procedure level. And I'll talk about that too just for a second, because most general surgeons do about 10 different procedures. Very, very few are good at 4 things.
Yep.
Most of them are only great at 2 or 3 things. And so in our tool, when we click on a surgeon, we can see that they score 99 for rectal procedures and 81 for colon procedures, but they might only score 54 for ventral hernias, but that's their 3rd most common procedure, but they're not that great at it, right? So they need to stay in their lane with the colon and rectal procedures, but it'd be so much better for their patients.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I was just thinking through this in my old days of surgery, and this is going to be, and you mentioned it is very disruptive.
Mhm.
Very disruptive, extremely needed. And I think by association, because this information is available and will, in the future be mainstream to all patients and all employers, that hopefully people will level up.
Mhm.
Hopefully people will. And are people able to search themselves, or is it only information to your contracted customers?
Anybody in the world can access procindy.com now. They
Okay.
can see that. Um,
And see how they're
our
ranked?
Well, it's just not going to show the surgeon's name.
Okay.
It's going to show a surgeon ID and then the complication rates and cost and things like that, what hospital they're at. It's going to show
Right.
that. For our current paying customers and what our nurse navigators use, yes, they see all the surgeons' names,
Right.
and they can have an informed conversation with a patient, because there might be a reason that they don't want the surgeon that has a 99, right?
Mhm.
But there's no difference between the surgeon that has a 99 for hysterectomy, for say malignant hysterectomy, versus the person that has like a 94, because
Right.
we've also counted error rates, right?
Mhm.
And so we're honest about how confident are we in that score? What do we think the plus minus error rate is there? And so you really have to drop all the way down to around a score of 80, which would put you
Mhm.
around 80th percentile. Once you get there, then the curve really starts to fall off.
Okay.
The complication rates start to rise, the costs start to rise. But if you can stay in that top 20%, um, we're seeing just fantastic results there.
I mean, sky's the limit on this, because even from a recruiting standpoint, and
Mhm.
granted, a lot of times people are recruited out of fellowship or residency, but if you're relocating, that's going to be a big deal. It's almost like your Yelp performance review as a surgeon, right? That's
Right.
simply putting it and risk stratifying it for the patient and the population that they'll serve. Wow, that's incredible. So, is there a competitor out there right now that does something similar, or is this completely new landscape?
Yeah, there are. There's probably 40 companies in our space. Probably eight
Okay.
of them are doing good things,
Mhm.
and I love that. It's kind of like Gary used to always say it intuitive, like he loved the competition,
Yeah.
right? Because it pushes us. Probably one of the closer ones was Surgery Plus, that's rebranded themselves to Lantern.
Mhm.
Um, and and we've done all that they've done, from the standpoint of checking board certifications and doing background checks and things like that, which I think is, those are minimum levels
Mhm.
of expectations. Where we set ourselves apart is that we're the only company in the world that has access to the Da Vinci system event data, and we
Mm.
hadn't talked about that yet. But
Yeah.
that's the robot that you know really well,
Mhm.
that collects over 100 data points continuously, every like multiple times per second, during every procedure that's been recorded since around 2004 or so. So
Yep.
when our surgeons sign up with Informed, because there's no pay to play, right? They have to sign up to be able to agree to share their data with us, and we share that data back with them. And on the Da Vinci system event data, which we can connect to claims outcomes data for exact patients. So we don't know who the patient is. Of course, it's all protected. There's no patient identifying information in this, but we can see, like, if you clutch this many times, or you exchange your instruments this many times, or your energy utilization is X,
Mhm.
and it's inside these parameters, then we can expect you to see a better outcome. And that's exactly what we find. Um, Speed is not always the best indicator. The
Nope.
fastest, the fastest surgeons don't always have the best outcomes,
Mhm.
but slow also is bad. So it's really,
Yep.
where's the sweet spot? Um,
Mhm.
and that sweet spot needs to be assessed in a risk adjusted way, right? Because, like, say you look at robot gallbladders,
Mhm.
you know, sure, if they're necrotizing and hemorrhagic and they're in a patient with severe liver disease, that operation should take longer.
Mhm.
And so you have to be able to account for all of those variables. And this is what's neat, is that some of the statistical and mathematical techniques that we use now that drive our informed algorithm, they were impossible in 2022. Like the math didn't exist because and I know people overuse AI. To me, growing up in South Alabama, it's just really fancy math. But the techniques that our data scientists, that are just absolute geniuses, that they're using so that we can weight the terms in the informed score differently for different procedures and in different situations, it's really important, because a UTI after a hysterectomy is very different than a UTI after a mitral valve repair.
Right.
And so that not to really, kind of open up the secret sauce of what runs the algorithm, but that's what drove the innovation.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was still at Intuitive, you were involved in the Mia app and launch, right? So
Yep.
is there any integration with Mia at this point? Yeah. And for those that don't
Absolutely.
know what that is, it's my Intuitive app. Really
Yes.
cool app that had just come out right around the time that I was leaving.
So the My Intuitive app, that whole journey was just a blast, and I love the whole My Intuitive app team.
Yeah.
They took some napkins that we had scratched on, and they asked all the right questions of what would you want from an app, and they did so much due diligence with surgeons, literally for years, before they released the first version. And the first version was very good, to be able to show surgeons their volume, to be able to show their instrument utilization and some of the choreography of the instruments. Now, on my phone now, I mean, the ability for me to like look at the video from the case I did yesterday.
Nuts.
I mean,
Nuts.
it's really, it's what I expect from my running app, like Strava. Like I go for a run, I can look back at my data.
Yep.
It's what Tesla drivers enjoy whenever they look at the statistics on their vehicle and driving history. It's like my sleep app, right? Like
Which one do you use, by the way?
I use Sleep Cycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
all
use
the
any of
data,
those yet because I don't want it right next to my head, but I do like Calm. I use that every night. But there's a ton of sleep apps out there right now. So are you wearing the Ring?
I'm not, but I
Okay.
am an investor in one of the startups called the Bond Ring.
Okay.
I did invest in that about a year ago, and it was through Kickstarter. So it's I think I didn't love the Aura Ring. My
I didn't
daughter
either.
has one. My
Yeah.
other two kids are big Whoop believers. Um, and Apple's hooked me into the whole ecosystem. I run with my Apple Watch now, which
I know.
I made fun of
Same.
people that ran with an Apple Watch when I was a Garmin guy, and then
Yeah.
I was a Coros guy. But Apple has done a really, really good job of capturing me into their whole environment.
Good old vertical integration for you. And
Yep.
actually, I think Intuitive, Tribe consults a lot of different startups, a lot of different robotic startups as well. And the one thing that I think people really minimize is creating that moat. And it's not just a robot, right? It's a system, it's a program at the hospital level. And to upset millions of dollars of footprint of capital in a hospital and swap that out for a product that is still in beta, because every robot that came out of Intuitive always had a beta launch and there were always bugs, and anything computer, there's bugs, right? So you're swapping out something that's tried and true, has had years of re-engineering and re-innovation per feedback from customers. That's like their ethos. You're swapping that out on a whim and a prayer for something that may or may not be around the same cost, but doesn't have that protective moat like you just described with Apple.
Yeah.
I mean, so when you're innovating, this is just for everyone. Think about your moat because it's equally important. My Intuitive app was a moat. And all the other things, that the learning platform that they've come out with, their training program is a moat. All the different parts of the ecosystem work to maintain and nurture and retain customers. Okay, let's talk about a couple other things, and then I'm going to give you my speed round questions that everyone gets. But I do want to talk to you about just the industry in general. You're at a lot of meetings. I too was at LSI in March. Sorry we didn't see each other. It was like speed dating times
It
100
was.
there. It was
Yeah.
insane. But from your lens, because you're on, the physician provider side, but also on the entrepreneur and medtech executive side, what's coming up in our industry that you're excited about, or where do you see things heading?
Yeah. So no question, what's coming is more and better access to high quality information. Um, I really think that we're coming out of the misinformation age, which I never loved that kind
I don't
of
like it either.
description,
Mm-hmm.
because I think if it's misinformation, it often comes from a place of ignorance or a lack of
Yeah.
understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But we are making things much more understandable now than they ever were. And leveraging all of the tools to do that. I get asked a lot if I worry that AI is going to like replace a surgeon, and I'm like, absolutely not. It's going to make a surgeon better,
Yep.
and it's going to make the patient experience better for for the patients to be informed. And like, we talked about like all this data that we're bringing in. We don't use any surgeon reported data. I
Mm-hmm.
think all of the surgeon reported data, with all due respect to my friends and colleagues that have created some
Bogus.
big national registries,
Mm-hmm.
if they're taking surgeon reported data, I think it's garbage. I
Yep.
think it's absolute garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that this sounds a little offensive too is like the patient reported outcomes and the patient experience and some of the survey mechanisms and things like that. It's also similarly not good,
Mm-hmm.
because there was an article, I think it was in JAMA, I think it was 2 years ago, that showed that surgeons that had the highest patient satisfaction scores actually had higher mortality. More of their patients died if their patients really, really loved them. And the reality is that if a bad complication happens, the surgeons in particular get very close to those families.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, maybe even going to a funeral or spending certainly additional time with them. And so that's in some way masking that. And so to answer your question, it's all about getting the right information to the right people in a way that they can digest it.
Yeah.
And the folks that work here on our farm need to hear and understand that information in one way, and that's different than the questions that you would ask if you were
Mm-hmm.
having a procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to be able to match that. And so, and I think that it's really has the opportunity to level the playing field for folks that otherwise just don't have a chance in healthcare.
Yeah.
So as whenever
I'd like
they're
to
patients.
see I'd like to see that sentiment hit across our entire society, not just
Oh,
in
for
this
sure.
industry. Misinformation is we need to just be done with it. And
Mhm.
everything needs to be fact-based. I'm a black and white person. I think you're a black and white person.
Absolutely.
It's yes or no, right? It happened or it didn't. And
Mhm.
I just want the facts. Give me the facts. Don't give me your opinion of the facts. Give me the
Mhm.
facts. And then let me, as a discerning person and a logical person, make my own conclusion based on the facts. Informed consent, right?
Yeah.
Informed surgical. So that I agree. And I think we've probably got a long way to go on getting everyone the correct information. But I think the problem you're solving with your company is a big one, and it will alleviate the burden on all of the surgical reps out there that are constantly asked for referrals. And,
Mhm.
I have gotten in the way of a few surgeon referrals that people had told them to go to, and I have told them not to because I have been in the OR with them. So it does happen. It's happening whether you like it or not. But I think the fact that you're coming from a really data specific place will be good for everybody. It will ultimately be good for the surgeons, the providers, the patients, the hospitals, the insurance companies, all of the above. The other thing I think, that we just need to keep an eye on is this conversation around AI. I actually think there's going to be a big bolus in biotech. I do
Mm.
think because we're now using machines to think, we're not limited by human understanding and human capacity, right? So we're able to aggregate years of data in clinical research or cancer research or pharmaceutical research and speed things up at a magnitude that we were never able to do in human hands. And I do
Oh yeah.
think there's going to be, no one's getting their job taken away. I mean, maybe like line workers or something like that can be, done on an assembly line, but that's been there all along. But I think anyone that's got human potential, they're just going to get better. I mean, I'm sure you're feeling it. I use AI all day long in
Oh yeah.
everything. It's like having the smartest person at your fingertips at all times, you know?
Oh yeah. But it's just and the potential for like self-improvement is incredible. So my closest friend, training partner, David Corey, he and I met over 12, 15 years ago, running ultra marathons and these kind of things. And so David's never been in the healthcare industry.
Mhm.
And in January of 25, he had the opportunity to start a healthcare company. And he has. And
Wow.
he's
What's the
he's
name
going
of
to
his
be a
company?
yeah, it's called GI Pathology Solutions. And so with GI Pathology Solutions, he's been able to train himself on all that he needed, largely using AI technologies. And he's a great student, but it's a better way for him to learn
Mhm.
because it's like he's got a professor immediately at his beck and call
Yeah.
to be able to work through these things. And so it's been fascinating to see how somebody at like 47 can retrain themselves and
Totally.
they can launch. So I think
I
um,
know.
the sky's the limit. He's still working in his non-medical. He still has two other non-medical companies, right?
That's
But he's having
nuts.
so much fun,
It's
kind of
so fun.
recreating himself. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's incredible, and
I know.
just to watch it grow. Just like I mean, I love watching a medical student become a surgical resident become a chief, and then go on into practice.
Mhm.
Now, with these opportunities that we have in business and leadership and things, and like it goes back to those old saying, like if you give a man a fish he can eat for a day, but if
Yep.
you teach a man to
Teach him.
fish,
Yep.
live for a lifetime. And that's like
Mhm.
cross stitched in my parents' house across the street. And it's like, but those are the simple things, like keep the needs of the patient first, just like the Mayo
Yep.
Clinic always said, just like Intuitive modeled that. And then really be able to do the right thing for each person. And these large language models are so valuable. Just my nurse just asked, she's like, I need a primer on adrenal vein sampling. And so I just put that in Grok and I
Yep.
said, please
Grok's
create
amazing, by the way.
a
Pretty cool.
Cliff Notes version of what is adrenal vein sampling.
Yeah.
And then I said, she's a very experienced surgical nurse, so don't talk down. And it created a perfect little email that now she's good to go.
And you
And
don't have to deal with. Yeah, I mean,
right.
I use that all day long for those examples. If people
Yeah.
ask me to fill out forms for a conference, I don't want to take my precious time to fill out a form. I used to, but now I just drop the form because AI knows me better than my spouse at this point, which is a little scary to think about. But you drop that in and say, fill it out for me. It's like an immediate secretary. I mean, there's just so many different options, but
I've never used it to fill out a form. I'm going to
oh, it's
100% do that.
incredible. I do it all the time. Just anything mundane that I could do, but I shouldn't do.
Yeah.
I task that to what I call my virtual assistant, which is AI. So, okay,
We should, I know we got to wrap up, but we should
yeah,
really repurpose the grid, the urgent, important, urgent, unimportant,
yes.
repurpose that grid
What can go to
with
AI?
like a Venn diagram and say like, this goes to AI or this start here. If it's not important, not urgent, don't ever do it.
Yep.
But, that would
Oh,
be, that
there's
would be
so
good.
much. I would love to write a whole book on, if I had the time. I don't, but if I had the time, on just the different use cases of AI, both in the medical industry, but also just as an entrepreneur. It is incredible. The nice thing is I don't work for a big corporation. My husband works for a big corporation and they can't use AI because they don't have enterprise solutions yet. And there's this
Crazy.
whole concern around, confidentiality and, don't want all the information. But for us, it's like the sky's the limit. It makes me superhuman. So I'm a
That's a
big fan.
dangerous, it's a dangerous thing for enterprise though, to say that like employees can't use AI because they're doing it anyway,
They're
right?
doing it anyway, for
So it's
sure.
like it's like prohibition, right? If you make
Yep.
alcohol illegal, then that's when it got to be a really problem.
Yep.
It created all kinds of other problems around it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have embraced it at Informed,
Nice.
and we've put some healthy guardrails around it. And the Palantir platform's been really helpful for that.
I don't know
But that's been good.
Palantir. I'll look into that.
Yeah. Palantir, Alex Karp is the CEO, Peter Thiel.
Oh, I know Peter Thiel.
Yeah,
0 to 1.
that's that's Palantir.
Got it. Okay. So you can't get out of here without answering the last 3 questions I ask every guest speaker. So here we go. In no particular order, answer them how you see fit. A book that's made an impact on you. It can be fiction, nonfiction, business, non-business, whatever you would like to answer on that. A mentor that you'd like to pay it forward and why they've impacted your life. And then a superpower of yours.
That's great. Yeah. So I didn't even have to put this in AI, right? As soon as you told me those at the beginning, I just wrote them down. And so
Perfect.
the book is about Sam Zamuri, who was a banana, or they called him a fruit jobber. He sold ripe bananas. And there's a book about him called The Fish That Ate the Whale. And it's an interesting story about him going from a fruit jobber to taking over the entire fruit industry, United Fruit. But in the beginning of the book, he said that there's nothing more American than believing you're going to start a company to do good for the world that turns out and does bad things. And through the story, you'll hear of all of the ways, all of the bad things that came from his great success. But it's a little bit of a tragedy.
Okay.
So called The
Humbling,
Fish That
though?
Ate the Whale.
Okay.
What's that?
It's a humbling story, it sounds like.
Well, it just is. He said that he wouldn't let it ever turn bad, and it did.
Okay.
And I think that I don't want to be so overconfident to say that Informed would never break things. And
Right.
so what I lose sleep over is what might I do really well that we become overly successful at that then breaks something else really important. That's what I
Like
lose
the
sleep over.
unintended consequence of success.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it.
I think my superpower is I thrive in conflict. It's in any personal, like any kind of test I take or things like that. And I didn't handle that well growing up well. My dad, who I'll say more about, who is my mentor, and was just is an awesome man. He says that he spent more time in the principal's office when I was in 8th grade than he spent in his own office. But as I've learned to kind of harness that superpower and grow into it, that conflict can be so healthy whenever you're respecting the person that you're having that conflict with. And so I try to read a book every year that's written by someone that has a really opposite worldview to me. It's very insightful. I learned so much more than like reading something like from somebody that's in my lane.
Right.
And I think I got that from my dad. My dad was he was challenging of topics. He certainly stayed in his lane, became a world renowned endodontist doing root canals. He was Nixon's dentist, back in the day, and was the first endodontist in the Air Force. And it's so cool how his story paralleled mine in robotics, and that he was an early adopter. People criticized him. They're like, it's really expensive to do root canals. Why don't you just pull the tooth? Right? It's the same with me saying, I think you should take out a gallbladder with a robot. And they're like, oh, you should do it laparoscopically. But yeah.
Or
but,
I do my gallbladders in 15 minutes. You know how many times I've heard that in my career?
Right.
And you sort of, I'm like, oh, great. I'll come in tomorrow. You have a gallbladder scheduled. I'd love to time it for you.
That's absolutely. And that, and that dad, mentor, obviously he couldn't have done it without my mom. And so I'm just fortunate to have both parents living, at 82, they're doing well. And to be able to have our kids be able to know their grandparents. I never knew my grandfather. And on my dad's side, I knew my grandfather on my mother's side, which a lot of people say that I'm very similar to Red Mosley. He was chief commercial officer at Bluebird Bus Company for years. And
cool.
And so I think he was very entrepreneurial, very into commercialization and sales of new ideas, and was all about relationships.
Yeah.
And he understood the human element of like the Bluebird plan. He would walk through and, he asked, how Johnny did in the football game. He knew all the people along the line, and it's just as well as he knew the governors of the states that he was selling robots to. And he was a very, man of very high character that valued people around him. And so I'm just fortunate to have had all those opportunities.
Well, listen, if your dad and mom are listening, Dr. Porterfield is the real deal. I mean, not for the faint of heart, overachievement times 100, but just a genuinely good person, super smart, super innovative, just an incredible human that you have raised. And great job to you. And it sounds like he's doing the same with his kids. So the legacy is moving on. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to catch up with you. Yeah. It's been a while since we've talked, and get to see you on another side. I've always seen you as the surgeon, but I am really hopeful for Informed Surgical that it's going to kick butt and take names. And I know the two people at the helm, there's zero ability for that to not happen. So,
well, it's been exciting, and just, getting to see patients get access to surgeons they didn't know they needed.
Yeah.
And then their surgery becomes like a non-event. And that's, that's better than any revenue that we'll ever see.
Before we go, how do we get a hold of you? Where do they find you? LinkedIn, informedsurgical.com. What's the best place?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty easy to get a hold of me through LinkedIn. You can message me. I use Calendly for scheduling for scheduling meetings and things like that. Yep. So if somebody wants to reach out, and we can certainly put my contact information down in the bio for the podcast.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Leader Podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation, please take a moment to subscribe, share, and leave a comment so more listeners can find us. Interested in sharing your own story on Leader Podcast, or looking to elevate your brand and marketing efforts with Tribe Agency? Visit us at tribeagency.org/contact to get in touch. We value your engagement and look forward to growing with you. Don't forget to follow Leader Podcast for more inspiring episodes like this. Thanks again, and see you next time.